You might know Steve McQueen as the king of cool, but did you know he was also the king of grudges? He didn't throw punches on set, but he made sure his enemies felt the hit. Behind the camera, Steve McQueen kept score with a hit list of stars he couldn't stand. Some he clashed with, others he quietly crushed. And one he only made peace with on his deathbed. First on the list is Yul Brynner, the Magnificent Seven Showdown. McQueen tried to steal scenes from Brynner, even kicking away the dirt mound Brynner stood on to look taller. He didn't pull a gun. He didn't shout. But make no mistake, Steve McQueen went to war with Yul Brynner. When The Magnificent Seven began filming in 1959, Brynner walked onto the set as Hollywood royalty. He was fresh off an Oscar win, bald by choice, and radiating confidence. McQueen, still climbing the ladder, didn't like the view from second place. He saw Brynner not as a co-star, but as a challenge, and he responded with calculated sabotage. McQueen's strategy wasn't loud. It was subtle, surgical. He figured out quickly that movement, not dialogue, caught the camera's attention. So when Brynner spoke, McQueen fidgeted. He played with his hat, adjusted his gun belt, flicked his cigarette. Even in silence, he demanded focus. Directors call it scene stealing. McQueen turned it into an art form. Brynner noticed. Everyone did. But things got uglier than fidgeting. In one scene, Brynner stood on a small mound of dirt to appear taller and more imposing. McQueen waited for a break in filming, then walked over and kicked the mound flat. No warning, no apology. Just one actor literally cutting another down to size. The stunt wasn't just petty, it was deeply personal. Brynner was famously proud of his appearance, and he had fought hard to earn his place at the top. Watching a younger, scrappier actor undermine him, shot after shot, day after day, triggered a private fury. According to crew members, Brynner confronted McQueen off camera. He demanded the game stop. McQueen reportedly laughed it off. He didn't see it as disrespect, he saw it as survival. If you're not the lead dog, McQueen once said, the view never changes. He wasn't interested in being second, not to Brynner, not to anyone. Director John Sturges struggled to keep peace between the two. He appreciated McQueen's natural charisma, but worried it might derail the production. He warned both actors, but the damage was already underway. Scenes had to be carefully choreographed to avoid one actor upstaging the other. Tension infected the atmosphere. Lines became weapons, silence became performance, and yet the irony couldn't have been sharper. Brynner was the star. He had top billing, the biggest role, and the heroic arc. But McQueen walked away with the audience. His quiet gunslinger, cool, twitchy, unpredictable, became the breakout character. Critics noticed, studios noticed. The Magnificent Seven made McQueen a bankable star. At Brynner's expense, the rivalry didn't end with the film. Brynner never forgot. In later interviews, he dodged questions about McQueen or offered curt, dismissive remarks. Hollywood insiders whispered that Brynner had blacklisted McQueen from future collaborations. McQueen, in turn, rarely acknowledged the feud publicly. But privately, he knew what he had done. As McQueen's fame soared, so did his reputation for being difficult, especially with male co-stars who shared his screen time. But Brynner had been the first true adversary, and that made him stick. Years passed. The feud cooled but never thawed. Then came 1980. McQueen, now in his 50s, was dying of mesothelioma. The man who had once outrun cars, bullets, and the system was finally out of road, and in those final months, he made a call. He reached out to Yul Brynner. According to biographers, McQueen admitted he had felt insecure during the shoot. He told Brynner he respected him, that he had been threatened by Brynner's fame and authority, and that it had made him act out. It wasn't a dramatic apology. It was quiet, honest, sober. Brynner, to his credit, accepted the call. There was no public reconciliation, no staged photo or press tour. Just two dying legends, tied together by a film that made them both immortal, and a feud that nearly tore them apart. They spoke. They forgave. And that was it. Still, the scars were permanent. Their chemistry on screen was undeniable. That tension, the sense that these two men barely trusted each other, gave the Magnificent Seven its edge. But off-screen, that same electricity left a wake of bitterness. Steve McQueen got what he wanted. He won the frame, he won over the fans, but he lost the brotherhood of the man who had paved the way. Brenner never gave him the satisfaction of defeat. And McQueen? He never fully escaped the shadow of the man he stole the show from. The towering rivalry with Paul Newman. McQueen demanded equal billing and line counts with Newman, leading to a split poster and a bitter off-screen standoff. But the skyscraper wasn't the only thing on fire. So was Steve McQueen's ego. By the time the towering inferno rolled into production in 1973, Paul Newman was a household name, beloved, respected, and well into his prime. Steve McQueen was just as famous, but he wasn't as secure, not in stature, not in salary, and certainly not in billing. From day one, McQueen made it clear he wasn't going to play second to Paul Newman. He didn't say it directly, he calculated it. Before cameras rolled, McQueen's team reviewed the script and meticulously counted every single line of dialogue. They weren't checking for story logic, they were checking for balance. McQueen demanded that he and Newman speak an equal number of words on screen. If Newman had a speech, McQueen wanted one too. If Newman had a scene where he barked orders, McQueen needed a moment of command just as powerful. It became a war of inches. But in Hollywood, inches mean everything. Then came the fight over the movie poster. The studio originally planned to place Newman's name above McQueen's. That was the traditional billing order. Newman had signed on first and technically had the more central role. But McQueen wouldn't have it. He told producers he'd walk from the project unless his name appeared first. The compromise was a split title card, a rare and clunky fix. McQueen's name would appear first on the left side of the poster. Newman's name would appear slightly higher on the right. It was an awkward visual, but it was the only way to satisfy two of the most powerful egos in Hollywood. Crew members said the tension bled onto the set. Newman was professional but distant. He didn't have patience for McQueen's constant needling. And McQueen? He was laser-focused on maintaining balance, not in the script, but in perception. He made sure no scene ended with Newman getting the last word. No shot framed Newman as more heroic. Every move was chess. It didn't help that the characters mirrored the conflict. Newman played an architect, thoughtful, methodical, with a conscience. McQueen played the fire chief, blunt, physical, action-driven. On screen, they clashed over how to save the building. Off-screen, they clashed over who would save the movie. Behind the camera, the studio kept feeding the fire. Promotional materials were edited down to the syllable. Press interviews were monitored. But the damage was done. Newman, reportedly exhausted by the tension, once referred to McQueen as a chicken's *** tea, a rare, sharp insult from an actor known for staying above the fray. Newman wasn't the only one frustrated. Director John Guillermin allegedly lost patience with the endless negotiations between the two camps. Production delays piled up. What should have been a straightforward disaster movie had become a daily power struggle. Yet somehow, it worked. The movie exploded at the box office. Audiences loved the dual lead format. The tension, both scripted and unscripted, gave the towering inferno a strange realism. These weren't just two men fighting fire. They were fighting each other, for space, for authority, for screen time, and the audience felt every beat of it. But there was no friendship behind it, no handshake afterward. McQueen didn't attend the premiere. Newman didn't thank McQueen during press interviews. They both moved on, richer and more famous, but never reconciled. Years later, when asked about the experience, Newman gave a clipped answer. He said he respected McQueen's talent, but wouldn't work with him again. McQueen, true to form, never said much at all. There's one final irony. McQueen had gone to war over billing, lines, and poster placement. But after the towering inferno, he turned down several blockbuster roles. He was tired. He wanted more control, fewer battles. Some say he was burned out. Others say he had proven his point. Still, in the shadow of that skyscraper, two icons nearly tore each other apart, just to prove who stood taller. McQueen wouldn't share the frame, and Newman never forgot who tried to steal it. Don Siegel. Director Don Siegel once slapped McQueen across the face to force an emotional reaction on set. It wasn't the first time Steve McQueen clashed with a director, but it was one of the few times it almost turned into a fistfight. Hell Is for Heroes was supposed to be a gritty, no-frills war film, but behind the scenes, it became something else entirely. A slow-burning standoff between Steve McQueen and director Don Siegel. The tension didn't begin with shouting. It started with silence. McQueen, known for his minimalist acting and deeply internal performances, kept things quiet, sometimes too quiet for Siegel's taste. The director wanted raw emotion. McQueen wanted control. And the two men met in the middle of a trench, eyes locked, neither blinking. McQueen hated being told how to feel. Siegel hated being ignored. Their personalities were too similar, both stubborn, both territorial, both alpha in their own ways. And the film, set against the backdrop of World War II, gave them all the ammunition they needed to dig in. On the surface, the conflict seemed like a standard actor versus director dynamic, but it quickly spiraled. McQueen would resist Siegel's instructions, offering alternate takes, changing line delivery, or freezing up entirely if he didn't like the emotional tone of a scene. Siegel, used to getting what he wanted, pushed harder. Then came the breaking point. It was a key moment in the film, one where McQueen's character had to express grief, fear, and loss all at once. The scene was falling flat. McQueen refused to emote. Siegel shouted. McQueen shut down. And that's when the director did something no one on set expected. He slapped him hard. The crew froze. For a split second, it looked like McQueen was going to walk off the set or punch Siegel in return. But he didn't. He stood there, stunned, and then, according to multiple accounts, delivered one of the most raw, electric performances of the entire film. The slap worked. But the cost was enormous. Word spread fast. McQueen didn't forget the hit, or forgive it. He finished the movie, but the air between them stayed toxic. In interviews, McQueen never brought up Siegel by name. When asked about directors he admired, Siegel was conspicuously absent from his lists. That silence said more than any quote could. The irony? Siegel later said he respected McQueen deeply. He saw potential in his stillness, his ability to say more with a glance than most actors could with a speech. But he also called McQueen dangerous to direct, not because he was violent, but because he refused to be pushed. After Hell Is for Heroes, the two never worked together again. McQueen moved on to more controlled roles where he could dictate pace, tone, and even editing choices. Siegel went on to direct Clint Eastwood in Dirty Harry, another alpha actor, but one who was willing to play ball. The slap may have made the movie, but it ended any chance of reconciliation. For McQueen, it wasn't just about ego. It was about autonomy. He had spent years earning his place on screen. He wasn't about to let a director, any director, dictate how he should feel, even in fiction. And while the scene may have landed, the respect between them never recovered. Steve McQueen took the hit, but he never gave Siegel another shot. Creative differences on The Getaway with Sam Peckinpah. McQueen clashed with Peckinpah over final cut control, and eventually took the film away from him. Sam Peckinpah didn't like being told how to make a movie. Steve McQueen didn't like being told how to look in one. That was never going to end well. From the first week on the set of The Getaway, it was clear the film had two very different directors, one officially behind the camera and one unofficially in front of it. Peckinpah was a mad genius, known for his violent poetry and chaotic brilliance. McQueen was the polished star, obsessive about his image and reputation. They both believed they understood the story better, and neither man planned to back down. At first it was quiet, minor disagreements, timing issues, but the tension escalated fast. Peckinpah wanted grit. He wanted ugliness. He wanted blood on the walls, sweat on the lens, and broken characters doing desperate things. He believed The Getaway was a dark, raw crime thriller, not a glamorous vehicle for a Hollywood icon. McQueen saw it differently. He wanted edge, but he also wanted control. He didn't mind looking rough, but not sloppy, not desperate, and definitely not weak. When Peckinpah tried to push darker emotional notes from McQueen, scenes that made his character look frightened or unhinged, McQueen resisted. He cut lines. He challenged direction. He would shoot multiple takes, but only approve the versions that made him look cool under pressure. Then came the edit room. That's when the real war began. Peckinpah expected to shape the final cut, just like he had on previous films. But McQueen had inserted a clause into his contract. He would have final approval over the edit. Not a suggestion, a legal right. When the studio sided with McQueen, Peckinpah reportedly exploded. He had already edited an early cut of the film, rough, tense, brutally honest. McQueen tossed it out. Instead, McQueen brought in his own editor. Entire scenes were restructured, lines were removed, moments of vulnerability were trimmed or softened. Peckinpah's slow burn pacing was replaced with a slicker, more commercial rhythm. What remained was a thriller that worked, but one that no longer felt like a Peckinpah film. And Peckinpah knew it. Friends of the director said he felt humiliated. One even described him as gutted. Not because the film flopped, it didn't, but because he had lost control of his own creation. It wasn't just about ego. For Peckinpah, it was personal. He saw McQueen as a tyrant in a leather jacket, rewriting the soul of the story to protect his Hollywood image. McQueen didn't care. He promoted the film proudly. He called it one of the best experiences of his career. He praised the studio. He praised the box office. But Peckinpah's name, it vanished from his talking points. The irony is sharp. McQueen admired Rebels. He had always wanted to work with Peckinpah because of The Wild Bunch, a film that shattered Western tropes and redefined movie violence. But once The Rebel came too close to his spotlight, McQueen shut the door. Peckinpah never forgave him. In interviews, he dodged questions about The Getaway or dismissed it as a compromised product. He would talk about actors like Warren Oates or James Coburn with affection. When it came to McQueen, he stayed cold. And McQueen, he did what he always did. He moved on. Bigger projects, more control, fewer risks. But some say The Getaway changed him, that it was the first time McQueen saw how dangerous collaboration could be. That's when the walls went up for good, when he became not just the star, but the strategist, the man who never again let a director steer without his hand on the wheel. Behind the scenes of The Getaway, two alpha males tried to build the same machine, but they were using different blueprints, and only one of them had the key to the engine. McQueen drove it off the lot. Peckinpah never got back in the car. A mutual dislike for James Garner. Garner once called McQueen his own worst enemy and refused to sugarcoat their cold relationship. James Garner didn't bother with diplomacy. He didn't whisper behind closed doors. When it came to Steve McQueen, he said what many in Hollywood only dared to imply. "I don't like McQueen," he once told a reporter. "He's his own worst enemy." And that was one of his kinder remarks. Unlike McQueen's explosive feuds with Yul Brynner or Sam Peckinpah, the tension with Garner never erupted into a single dramatic blow-up. Instead, it lingered in the air, cold, quiet, and mutual. Two actors circling each other, both knowing they would never be friends. The roots of their feud go back to the 1960s. Both were TV stars trying to break into film. Both had the looks, the swagger, and a sense of danger that casting directors loved. But where Garner was laid back and famously easy to work with, McQueen was the opposite. He was guarded, competitive, and constantly measuring himself against others. Garner noticed it early. On one occasion, McQueen visited the set of The Great Escape, a film both men would eventually be tied to, and reportedly bristled at how much camaraderie there was among the cast. McQueen wasn't good with warmth. He didn't do small talk. He watched from a distance, taking mental notes. Eventually, the two men were up for the same kinds of roles: leading men, anti-heroes, tough guys with a streak of rebellion. But McQueen played everything closer to the chest while Garner leaned into charm. Industry insiders began to whisper that McQueen resented Garner's effortless likability, not because he wanted to be like him, but because he couldn't. The distance between them only widened over time. Garner, in his memoir, described McQueen as paranoid and weirdly insecure. He mentioned that McQueen was constantly worried about other actors stealing his thunder, even when no one was trying. He recalled moments when McQueen would tweak a performance, not for the story, but to make sure he stayed visually dominant in a scene. Garner didn't tolerate that kind of energy. He called it exhausting. Hollywood, for its part, kept trying to pair them. Studios knew that tension sold tickets, but neither man was willing to fake a friendship for press tours or staged photos. They kept their distance, and when they did cross paths, it was civil, but ice cold. One particularly awkward moment happened at a party in the early 1970s. According to a guest, Garner and McQueen exchanged words that were measured but tense, like two men carefully deciding whether to trade insults or simply walk away. They chose the latter. No fireworks, just frost. The irony is, Garner was never afraid of being upstaged. He often praised his co-stars, even those who had better scenes or stronger lines. What he couldn't respect was a man who played the game only for himself. And that was Steve McQueen in Garner's eyes, a man addicted to control, always chasing the upper hand, even when no one else was keeping score. McQueen never responded publicly to Garner's comments. He didn't correct the record, he didn't lash out, he just stayed silent, a move that felt less like maturity and more like indifference. Some believed McQueen didn't hate Garner, he just didn't trust him. Garner, for all his humor and charm, could read people too well. He could see through McQueen's defenses. And McQueen hated being seen. The two never reconciled. There was no phone call, no quiet apology, no acknowledgement of anything left unsaid, just silence. Garner outlived McQueen by more than 3 decades. But when asked later in life if he had ever changed his mind about the actor once called the King of Cool, his answer was short: no. For all the fights and shouting matches in McQueen's career, this one left a different kind of mark, the kind that doesn't burn hot, the kind that freezes and stays frozen. He drove fast, played hard, and left nearly everyone behind. Steve McQueen wasn't just a star, he was a force. But for all his fame, he left a trail of rivals in his dust. He didn't care who liked him, only that they watched him and never forgot.